Come on in. Welcome to today's edition of PapasPewPews. Daniel coming at you live from Waynesville, Georgia. Thanks for the like. J-Dog, what's up, brother? Been watching a little bit more in the news on this shooter, and they're saying it was an M4 style rifle that he went in with. But I was also watching the footage of the war vet that stopped the mass stabbing in Walmart just a few states over, and the difference that it made to have an armed citizen than it did in that New York office building. And then I watched some of the videos, the aftermath videos of the New York building. You know, they teach people to run, hide, and then fight, but yet they won't give them the rights to carry what they need to fight with. They were piling chairs and desks and all that up against doors, and just what they had to be going through mental wise while all this mess was going on. And how he's already, they're already building a defense. Oh, he had a brain injury he suffered from playing football, and all the dumb shit that you hear after these unfortunate events. I let the hammer go fast occasionally. The hammer. You need to adjust your sear spring. That's called a hammer drop. Uh, all it is a few little bends, and you can put that back. Because if you're not careful, you'll turn that into basically the same thing as a switch. Not being funny, just putting that out there. I want to say you bend it forward to do away with that problem, not back. Yeah, that's what the news is saying was an M4. Um, it looked like a Palmetto State M4 clone, or M4 Palmetto State M4. They showed, if you go look at Megan Kelly's report, she actually showed footage of the guy after he was down and the rifle that was bloodied up. But yeah, it's crazy, man. Like I said, I've been following this article for, well, started with the Walmart situation. Yeah, they didn't say it, but you could see it in the video, and Megan Kelly actually said he was armed, and you can see it when you watch the actual video of the engagement in the parking lot. But they don't want you to know he was armed because that does not, once again, fit the agenda. We were talking about on other lives today the agenda, the Manchurian candidates, if you will. They're saying now that he got off on the wrong floor, that he was headed up to the NFL headquarters. Well, BlackRock's in that same office. Who's to say he wasn't headed to BlackRock? Being that they own so much stuff in that, in the world, and all the stuff that goes behind them. He also had a revolver. That's what's odd about it. They were saying, Megan Kelly was saying, why did he do himself with the rifle when he had a revolver sitting right there? Um, yeah, he had a revolver and he had that. Um, it's a sickening story the more you hear. And the thing is, he was a security specialist for a casino in Las Vegas. So he left Las Vegas and drove through all these gun-friendly states and didn't do anything. He waited till he got to New York, took out the only two people in the building he knew would put any kind of resistance up. He took them out, which was the security and the off-duty officer. And then he was free to do what he wanted to. Because in New York, you can't have a firearm. In New York, you can't go, especially in Manhattan. Manhattan is a strict gun-free zone. Ever since 9/11, they've got the metal barriers and all that stuff. They keep officers on every corner, which also gets me how he was able to casually stroll down the sidewalk and all them cameras with live feed cameras and make it to where he was going, and nobody threw up any red flags. It's not like being in Texas or in Georgia or in some of our gun-friendly states where you could strap an AR on your back and don't nobody too much say anything to you. There it's very abnormal. And I meant to grab my little tank to show you guys. I bought a little tank when I was traveling out Midwest in a truck stop that's made of old AR 5.56 bullets. And when I took my trip to New York, I stripped my truck of every ammo, every weapon. I actually had an officer in a parking garage tell me if they wanted to be asses, they could have gave me 1 year per bullet that had that made up this tank, because they consider all ammo, whether it be casings or ammo, as live ammo. Yeah, see that the whole story is strange, guys. The whole story. Once again, we're fixing to start pushing. What they're fixing to push is the red flags now, because they said he had 2 documented mental health issues, and they're already saying they don't know why that wasn't caught, and this wasn't a gun nut situation. That they should have been able to strip his rights and strip his permit, because he did have a carry permit, but not for New York. Which is crazy how all this works, man. And like I said, the more I'm listening to, the more it just sickens me that the news picks and chooses. Where you go over, like you said, to the other side, the Walmart situation, that was a retired vet. When everybody else was running away, he took his personal protection and he ran towards, and he stopped other people from being harmed. He definitely stopped it, and that's my point. That's why I carry daily, because I was on that side. Because of what I had, I stopped a lot of people from getting harmed. But, then you go back to New York. We just got over this Daniel Penny situation on the subway, where they tried to prosecute him and tried to destroy his life. And all he was doing was defending people on the subway. These states that are so anti everything, protects them criminals in a way to where, even a good person, they're afraid to step up because they don't want to be prosecuted. They don't want to have their life destroyed. And then the news media gets a hold of it, and before you know it, I mean, I don't like to bring up a whole lot of politics, but look at the Kyle Rittenhouse situation. I mean, look what they done to him. So many times, these situations could be stopped with a good guy that's properly trained, that's carrying, but that don't get the news coverage. That don't get the recognition it should get. Guys, if you're just coming in, please double tap that screen. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. I have content. Everything I have is Second Amendment related. I don't do a whole lot of politics unless it's something funny that catches me, and I pick fun of both sides. I'm one that believes less government is better. So I don't too much pick sides, because I feel they're all out to get us. Until they can find a way to make everything right again and earn our trust, I don't promote for them. But I appreciate everybody coming in. I wasn't going to do a live this afternoon, but the more I watched on that news coverage, there's something about that story in New York that just isn't sitting right. And you're right, it won't ever happen. J-Dawg, we were talking about that earlier. There's some things about the New York story that just doesn't sit right. What's up, Joe Kennedy? I've been in that area, that exact area of Manhattan. I have walked them streets, and I know everywhere you look, there was a police officer. And they're always just standing outside the buildings or whatever. How he was able, yes, he double parked his car. That's a red flag right there. I was waiting on a guy to pull out, and had an officer jump my behind because he said, "You're double parked." I said, "No, I'm waiting to park in his spot when he moves." But how he's able to double park his car, get out his car, and just casually walk to get into that building. Kennedy. Yep. Look at the mall. The guy in the mall had just started concealed carry and had a small Glock and stopped the guy with what was that, a 40-yard shot or a 50-yard shot? Yep, it was a certain time of the day. And now they're saying he got off on the wrong floor, that he was going after the NFL because he had a brain injury. And there goes the excuse that they're trying to set up. So now they're already talking about red flag laws. And red flag laws are dangerous because all you got to do is have an ex-wife who get a divorce and her say, "Hey, I think he's got a problem," and they're coming to take your stuff away. And then you got to go to court and prove your case and maybe eventually get your stuff back. My point, laws do not work. If a person is bound and determined to do harm, they're going to do it. Like the guy in Walmart, he used a pocket knife. He was stopped, thank God, by somebody who had a firearm. It's on other people. You're exactly right. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. People become unarmed peasants. When you take away that right, we become unarmed peasants. We become victims to those who don't care about laws. These things on this table right here is the only thing that keeps somebody from walking in, taking everything you own, is because they fear what's on the other side of that door. But when you get states and businesses and areas that just put the whole area as a no gun zone, you create soft targets, and that's where they're going to go. This man left Las Vegas, drove all the way to New York to find an area that he could get away with what he was doing. That proves the point. Look at all the states in between that have good gun laws. He didn't want to fuck around and find out there because he'd have never made it to New York. If he'd have got out somewhere in the outer perimeter of Las Vegas and pulled that crap, or if he would have went through Texas and pulled that crap, wherever, he would have never made it to New York. He probably wouldn't have made it out the car. But it's always around certain times of the years these things pop up. And you can go ahead and look. I'm going to go ahead and call it. There'll probably be another situation, something similar to it within a couple of days, because there always is. When one gets away with it, you always got the copycats, the Manchurian candidates. What's up, Drum? Freedom Squid, what's up, brother? Hey, all y'all double tap that screen. Um, Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. We on our road to 1K finally. What up, drama? But yeah, I just, like I said, I got on after I got off the live with J Dog. I got on the news and started watching some of that, and there's just so much about that story, man. It's tragic. My heart goes out to the ones who lost their life. The officer got shot in the back, so he was took out. The security guard was taking cover behind the desk. He was hit. Somebody was taking cover behind a pillar, and they got hit. But he knew because he was a security specialist. He knew who to go after first. He knew how to eliminate the threat. And he did exactly that. And then he had free reign. He got on that elevator, went to that 33rd floor, and done what he done. And if you look at Megyn Kelly's show, it actually shows the picture of him after what he done to himself. It shows him laying prone on the floor. It shows the rifle. It shows a very good picture of the rifle, and talks about what else he had. Yeah, he went to the 33rd floor is where he got off at. That they say he hit. Basically, they say the elevators are separate. They're broke off in sections. You could pick like 1 through 13, and then 13 through whatever. He was headed for the NFL office and got on the wrong elevator, basically. Yeah, the Masons. J Dog, you just said it. 33 levels. 33 levels. Imagine that. And that same building is the home of BlackRock, if you do any background on BlackRock and some of the shady stuff they do, and some of the other companies that were in that building. There's a lot of stuff that just don't make sense. It's not adding up. And I just threw up anything today, guys, because I wanted to get on live and talk for a minute. I really didn't take time. I broke out the old cheap 1911 and the 357. J-Dog, that's the poly protector sitting there with the cylinder open. And if you see the way them grips are, you see the ridges. That's what everybody fusses about when they shoot them, because them ridges dig into your hands. Yep, you exactly right, Everyday Carry. I just can't get over we still pushing gun-free zones. We're still pushing gun control when it's clear. You can contrast the Walmart incident from 2 days ago to this New York thing. There was somebody at Walmart who had a firearm who stopped it. Yeah, people got hurt, but it could have been a lot worse. But because of the retired vet who had his firearm, who ran towards the danger before the cops ever thought about being there, it was stopped. All the cops had to do was come put the cuffs on. And that's that way if you think about it in everyday life. The police get here after the effect. After the effect. After everything's went down. Call them from your house one night and time them. 15, 20 minute, response times. And I'm not knocking them because, there's just not enough. That's why I cannot preach it enough. You are your first defense against anything. You are your family's first defense. You're yourself's first defense. That's why you to buy these tools, train with them. Yeah, they're pretty. We love to show them off. We love to, but at the end of the day, they're tools and they're put here to protect ourselves. And too many people are too willing to bend in certain areas. Like with this here, I guarantee you're going to have some people who are on the fence who are going to say, yeah, I really don't think we need to. You know, every time something like this happens, they start, oh, we don't need a FRT, or we don't need bump stocks, or we don't need a. Uh, this is not time to compromise. This is time to drill down. No, we need more of them. We need more trained people on the streets at all times. Same with schools. If you put a couple of teachers in a school and don't tell anybody who they are, the first couple of times the bad guy gets turned around, laid down, you'll see all this crazy shit stop. Because here's the thing with schools, and I could talk a little bit on this, I can't talk much, but they go through all these drills and these special trainings, but the students go through the same thing, so they know all the protocols, same as these office buildings. The ex-employees and the people who are there, they know all the protocols. So wherefore, if they get ready to do something, they know who to take out first and where to go to create the most damage. Don't travel without being armed after surviving. Oh wow. Yeah, I survived. I survived 3, not mass, but I survived 3. Don J, what's up? Garlic Festival shoot. Yeah. I had a friend who was out in the Vegas one. He went to the concert, and that's the thing. I won't go. Like I said, after my trip to New York, I said I'd never go back. I had to drop. I had to drop my things off in Pennsylvania because the laws are so strict and they don't recognize the Georgia concealed carry. So I had to drop everything off. And then when you get into Manhattan itself, it is so anti-gun in downtown Manhattan. That's what keeps getting me. And they have cameras, they have shot spotters, they have all this stuff. Uh, Here's one for you. They said he was on lists. They've got facial recognition software when you walking around down there. Um, it just, the whole thing's just wild to me and blows my mind how any of this happened. He just casually walked in, and it wasn't hid, it wasn't under a shirt, it just on his side, just walking. Seems to me there should have been all kind of 911 calls leading up to it. There should have been something. But he was a security specialist in Las Vegas at a casino. So he knew how to go in and, like I was saying earlier, he knew how to go in and do away with anything that might be a threat to him. So he'd have free run. Minority Report technology. You're exactly right, Manchurian Candidate. It's always people of a certain age, a certain bracket, and they always seem to have some pitiful ass excuse. Oh, I had a brain injury, a terminal brain injury. Okay, well, if you were going to off yourself, then off yourself, but don't take a bunch of people with you. Them people were just trying to go about their everyday life and live their lives. And you're going to go in and do some foolish shit like that that's going to make all of us suffer in the long run. But what gets me is the contrast in the two articles and how they still won't really acknowledge that the guy who stopped the stabbing in Walmart had a firearm. They will not acknowledge that an armed citizen saved a bunch of people's lives, where not having armed citizens just costed lives. Yes, sir, Don J. I agree. I'd rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6, and that's always been. Even before I became a legal firearm carrier, I've always carried. Because I always said I wouldn't be that one laying there wishing I had brought it. I always said that wouldn't be me. Because the world is in a state now to where there's just no value to the human life. And I'm a big preach on, if you're going to carry these, learning, how to conduct yourself, learning how to have a couple of options, talk it out first, walk it out, run it out, fight it out, and then when you can't do any of them, then you grab one of these. But in one of them situations, you don't do none of that. You cancel all that. You go straight to work. You identify the target, take it down as fast as you can. But once again, you've got people who are scared to do that nowadays too, because of these um, DAs and prosecutors that try to paint the hero out to be the bad guy. Look at what happened to Daniel Penny on the subway. They tried to end his. They run his name in the dirt, tried to basically end him completely. Luckily, he beat his. The Kyle Rittenhouse situation. He beat his, but damn, how much damage did they do to his reputation before he did? The one in Florida that was so controversial that ended up walking. And that was controversial. Yes, he may have got out. Yes, he may have been the initial aggressor. But when that young boy got on top of him and started banging his head into the concrete, then he became the aggressor. Knowing these gun laws and how these laws work can save you. I'm where I am is home of the Ahmaud case, Ahmaud Arbery. It was well known during the George Floyd time. We had a couple of guys who was patrolling their neighborhood, and they said Ahmaud was jogging, and where they made their mistake, however, they chased him with the truck. They hit him 3 times with the truck. They finally cornered him. The father was in the back of the truck with a 357 revolver, and the son got out with a 12 gauge. Well, Ahmaud then started fighting with the guy with a 12 gauge and ended up losing his life. Well, now all 3 of them guys are serving life in prison. If the father would have fired from the back of the truck, it may have been a different outcome. Reason why is the law states your vehicle is an extension of your home. But once you get out the vehicle, you become the aggressor. So I always tell people, if you've got to come down to a situation, stay in your vehicle. Don't get out and chase anybody. Same with your castle doctrine. Castle doctrine is just that, inside the castle. If you go out the castle, then you become the aggressor. Yes, there's a bunch of videos on that. It made national news for the longest time. It got our district attorney fired. Um, I can say this about our town: we had BLM, we had um, different Second Amendment groups here We had all this going on, but we never once had a riot. We never had something in our city burn. Everybody on both sides conducted themselves like to the utmost. We didn't have all that foolishness that everybody else had. But then again, we had a mayor and a police chief and a bunch of us that was standing around and said, look, protest all you want, but the first time you throw a brick or the first time you light a fire, we're going to put you over there in that river. And we never had an issue. We had people out that day yelling out, remember Ferguson. And I never will forget, the mayor looked at me and said, grab him. I touched the boy on the arm. I said, look, Ferguson's its own time. Today y'all here for a mod, so we're going to focus on that and leave it at that. And we didn't have any more issues. We even had that idiot from Atlanta or from the North Georgia area that started this militia. I guess you call it a militia. We had him come down with his people. He's the same one that invaded Stone Mountain. You can look that up too. He ended up going to prison for pointing a rifle at a Fed on top of a building. But he was about an idiot. Yes. Yep. Mm. But yeah, I figured I'd jump on for a minute, holler at everybody, see what everybody was up to, see if anybody else was watching the news and hearing the shit that I was hearing. It makes me mad though that we can't find a good news media outlet anymore that'll tell the whole story. It's always twisted one side or the other. Um, some of your best news outlets now is social media. Some of the podcasts and some of the things like that. That's where you get your best news now. Because just like politics, they all got it. They all seem to have an agenda. And I feel that's a lot why YouTube tries to subvert how they do, because they don't want us getting together and knowing the whole story on anything. There was certain places during all this that they would be reporting something was going on, and I had people in that town, and I'd call them like, "Hey, I heard y'all catching hell." And they're like, "No, ain't nothing going on." But yet you'd have a news anchor standing somewhere, and they would find this little pocket of people, and they would make it out to be this big thing. But the people who were there saying, "Man, it's not going on. You might have 10, 15 people here, and that's it." Guys, if you're just joining in, double tap that screen. Subscribe to the channel. If you're wondering, on the tables, the Poly Protector 357 Magnum, the 1911 45 ACP, and the old ugly Maverick 88 sitting over there. And an extra magazine with the RIP rounds in it there to the left. You can barely see that. What up there, wanks? No, I'm just on a tirade today about the news media and this weird situation in New York. The more I watch, the more it just don't add up. Manhattan, of all places. And I just can't get over how strict they were when I was there just a few years back. And this guy was able to walk down a sidewalk with one exposed and walk in a building. It's crazy. Just doesn't make sense. But I done a longer video on that this morning. I've just heard a little bit more news since and done a little bit more research since. He's claiming traumatic brain injury from playing football. It was what led him up to it. Said he had tried to drink a gallon of antifreeze to off himself. So apparently he decided when that didn't work, he was going to go the other route. But guys, it's perilous times, man. I can't tell y'all enough. Train, carry, keep one in the tube. Oh, it wasn't what he was planning to do, John. Google New York, and remember we have to watch how we say stuff on YouTube. Google New York pew pew user. You know what I mean? Google what he walked into a building. They said the target was the NFL headquarters, and he deleted quite a few people yesterday. But he got out in downtown Manhattan, walked into the building with a M4 style rifle in plain sight, and nobody stopped him. He ended up stopping himself after he was done. But it's, what's up, coach? Ain't much to it, brother. Just sitting around another day. Wife goes back to school tomorrow, thank God, so I have a little bit of time to myself again. She goes early to set up for the students coming next week. Well, they're already doing that, Wanks. That's the thing. They're already making comments about the automatic rifle that he used, which was not automatic; it was semi. Um, and about the red flag laws, people with mental conditions on how they should have their rights pulled. Um, which once again, man, we can't compromise on no aspect because they take it too far. People who have mental disorders, they should be looked into. But we can't give them that because if we give them that, then it's going to be what I just said. Your ex-wife from 20 years ago can call up a judge and say, hey, he's a danger, he has firearms. Bam, you red flagged, and then they come and kick down your door and take your stuff. So it's unfortunate that we can't compromise and agree without them trying to push it to the complete deletion of firearms. Yep, they said it might be white. Yep. Um, you're gonna have to keep playing with that sear, J Dog, and also, have you took your hammer loose at all recently? Make sure that your actual sear and your hammer is engaging like it's supposed to, because that hammer drop, Google it. I mean, YouTube it. It'll show you exactly what you need to do to stop that hammer drop. Just Google 1911 hammer drop, and it'll take you right to what you need to do to fix that. Because essentially, what you have now is a full auto. Yeah, I know. I know it's different. But I have a feeling it's going to be right there in that sear spring. Um, Matter of fact, it's going to be, you've got the far right arm. It's going to be the middle arm, if I'm not mistaken. But just keep playing with it because you'll get it back to where it's not doing it. You just gotta tinker with it. No, the if I'm looking at it, if I'm looking at it, the far left arm is not it. It would be the middle. It's the middle arm. Yeah, the middle. But like I said, there's good Google videos on that one, or YouTube videos on that one on hammer drop, because I ended up ordering a whole new sear for mine because I had done mine a little too much and it let off every round. I was like, oh no, we can't have that. I ain't trying to have a felony. Oh yeah, you can still put some Wilson Combat in there. You just got to order different types. It'll you can put other parts in there. Um, it's just damn, I'd hate to mess with a Colt. Their parts are already dialed in, but it's gonna be like I said in that sear. It's gonna be where your or the sear spring. Or rephrase what I'm saying, or where your actual sear and hammer engage. But you haven't polished none of that, so that shouldn't be an issue. Usually, you only get that hammer drop on that part when you polish too much metal off of it. Uh, Yeah and no. I mean, yeah, I guess two toning it, serious collectors. But then again, to me, it made it look better.